had to cut that off because I was dropping the dog off. Well, for further context, recently, because I made the mistake of doom scrolling and looking at what others were up to. Honestly, I wish I hadn't, because ignorance is bliss. Family members, and they know who they are out there posting sanctimonious, disingenuous crap about suicide awareness. Men need emotional support, all that kind of stuff, despite the fact that they have done some pretty evil and twisted things to me. That some of them are openly dog whistling to antagonize me, and you know who you are. And in typical fashion, that is me. I responded with a bunch of hot air, pretty much saying along the lines of, hey, you know what, seeing as got one foot in the grave anyway, why don't I just tell you all off, or have a round of fisticuffs with some of you? After all, you've all gone around telling the whole world I'm a homicidal nut job to justify this family scapegoating. And I knew from the get-go that someone like Jonathan Warden would use that as a perfect ammunition for Jonathan, I know you already had a restraining order in the works. That's who you are. You never wanted to face the music. You never wanted to show any semblance of empathy. You just wanted me to fade away, disappear. So, I'm not going to hide the fact that I spewed a bunch of hot air online that could be definitely interpreted as in the way Jonathan Warden has chosen to interpret it for his own, convenience. But it doesn't change the legitimacy of everything I've said. Actual physical violence, actual threats that have taken place, all of that, he didn't care about. But when his nephew, who he has mentally tortured as the family scapegoat for 8 years, spews a bunch of hot air, then it's something to, be wary of. The short version of all this is, over the last 8 years, Jonathan Warden has unspokenly communicated to me, his nephew, that my mental distress and anguish is an acceptable outcome of the current status quo, and that my life is an acceptable loss. That's basically what the last 8 years of this family scapegoating boils down to. All the times he's scowled at me in public when he sees me. And now, he's basically taken a page out of my mother's book to paint me as this evil, homicidal thing to justify everything they say and do. Jonathan, if you have put even a shred of effort into being an actual decent, empathetic person towards your own nephew, just a shred of that effort, as much of that effort as you put into going out of your way to vilify and pathologize and alienate your nephew, we never would have gotten to this juncture. What really makes it evil, Jonathan, is you're smart enough to know the kind of mental anguish you're causing. It's just that, like I said, my life is an acceptable loss to you. Well, Jonathan, the two sisters who encouraged me to commit suicide had more balls than you, because at least they pulled off the mask and came out and just said what they really felt. But you got to go through all these conniving, underhanded means. Whatever it takes to keep the family scapegoat isolated and alienated, right? about it in public online. I assume I'll have the restraining order by the end of the day today. I don't know how long that stuff takes. I know you're very eager to get that pushed through. I kept telling myself it couldn't get any worse, but you know, Jonathan, every time I'm in your presence out in public at Kroger, when I see you out in public, sometimes you don't see me, sometimes you do, and you scowl. Every time I see one of you, my family, out in public, I become physically ill. I mean, I get overcome with nausea. That's how much you assholes have psychologically fucked me up with vilifying me. And for so long, you all had me convinced that I was this evil thing. 2 months after one of my sisters is begging me for her help to save her dog from the pound. 2 months after that, she's out in public walking past me at Kroger acting like I'm the boogeyman. It's funny how the narrative changes at the drop of a hat, depending on how useful I am to people. What was I saying? Oh yeah. I thought I felt all the horror I could feel. And you assholes think... Oh man. I was getting queasy just walking up the road to your damn house. You assholes make me hyper vigilant in public. When I used to see you in public, I would pretty much dive into the bushes and avoid contact. But I'm starting to realize, why am I acting this way? Oh yeah, and you figure taking my lack of coherence as another sign of, my mental instability. I spent about 8 years, not counting when Caitlin and Stephanie used me, in isolation. You tend to forget how to talk. Come on, dude, share the road. I can't keep a train of thought anymore. I keep fucking up at work. I'm almost dropping trailers before lowering the landing gear. I'm almost ripping off the airlines. I'm almost ripping off hoses. My life is a waking nightmare. And what really makes it a waking nightmare is how you all know you made it a waking nightmare. And some of you find a sense of accomplishment in that. And some of you are just purely apathetic. With a small dose of malice mixed in there. All it took was Christina just wanting to get rid of her son because she didn't have any more child support checks, because she didn't have any bragging rights because her son was a pathetic loser and she just wanted him gone. All it took was her to just start building a small foundation of a smear campaign, and here we are 8 years later, and you are all absolutely convinced, you have convinced yourselves that you are all justified in how you treat me. Jonathan Warden. willing to frighten his own daughter just to help bolster a narrative that vilifies his nephew. Wow. Oh yeah. Jonathan, it's like, I don't know why you keep doing this other than to just try to fill me with a sense of dread and horror. Because you and I both know you're full of shit. You're frightening your daughter. She didn't even see me. No one came to the door. All the windows are closed. Then you flat out admitted that you frightened her by calling the police and making a big scene. You went out of your way to make that whole thing a scene. And I know you're putting all the pieces in place. I know you're taking screenshots, and I know you're every action you take is you putting everything in place so you can create a restraining order to justify a restraining order. Because rather than go to family therapy like you offered to set up for us, Jonathan, which was a complete lie, you would rather just pathologize and alienate the scapegoat because it's easier. It's just your nephew. What's his life worth, huh? That's who you are, Jonathan. The life of your nephew is an acceptable loss to you. That's who you are. I look forward to the defamation lawsuit on top of the restraining order. You're a coward. You are never going to face me or face any accountability for everything you ever done in your involvement in this family scapegoating. Be sure to have a good laugh about all this with your buddy Amanda, the first sister to encourage me to commit suicide, and the one who stole from me, then the one who defended for doing all that. At this point, Jonathan, I gotta wonder if you're getting some sense of accomplishment out of this.